Well, here's how I'd like to start it off. There's some research that's been published recently. And in that research, it portrays the 12th grade performance of the student body of the United States of America in both mathematics and reading as near or at all-time lows in terms of competence and whatever the standardized testing is that measures mathematics and reading. Furthermore, we're in supernova of artificial intelligence deployment and utilization, which only further reduces the need and appetite for reading and math. There was an MIT study that actually measured the brain activity of those who use artificial intelligence at any sort of high percentage of their time. And it showed notable reductions in brain activity. And brings up two topics. One, are you concerned by this evidence of diminishing math and reading? Two, do you think artificial intelligence only accelerates the decline in math and reading? Three, do you believe that the decline in math and reading is related to the stupidity of American politics and media in general? And four, what do we do about it?
There are a lot of questions there.
Well, only four, actually. But
Okay. Well, we're going to save what do we do about it because I have some thoughts about that, but let's save that for later in the discussion.
okay.
And if we go back to number 3 and we talk about the state of education in America,
As it relates to politics and media, is it a correlation?
Yeah.
Number 3.
There is no question. I mean, I think you start at the top and you have to just kind of, there's a certain, there needs to be a certain appreciation for how important education is. I mean, clearly other countries are doing a much better job at education than us. Obviously China being one, but I would say so even from my own experiences, Russia, India, just all we talk about all the major, the big players out there. I feel like, hey, I just got back from doing a week long, bunch of seminars in Mexico, and the level of undergrads at Mexican universities compared to U.S. universities, it's scary.
Meaning you felt that the anecdotal experience in Mexico was vastly, so that there was a higher level of intellect or education, whatever you want to call it.
There was a much deeper appreciation for going to a university, and there was a much deeper appreciation for the challenges at those universities. And I've never seen anything like it at a U.S. university that I've spoken at. I've seen graduate programs where there's a high level of interest, but on an undergraduate level, I've never seen anything like what I saw in Guadalajara 2 weeks ago. Amazing. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. That's an important
I think it's more here than there.
Yeah, it is. I shouldn't have said that.
I think it's a significant anecdote.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it starts with, listen, I don't feel like doing a whole segment on bashing Trump and his administration, whatever, because I'm tired of it. But it is clear that education does not play a big role with this administration. It's not important to them. And you don't have to look any further than the fact that the Department of Education is run by Linda McMahon. I mean, that is a statement about the U.S. that is probably greater than any other. You can't make a more powerful statement about the amount of concern, the decline in just intellectual firepower, when at the top you basically put a complete idiot there that I don't even know where to start. Okay. But I
So
think that's
yeah, okay, go ahead. Sorry.
I think that's just a statement on the, because your question was on the overall, where are we? I do
Well, also,
think
do you think, I was also just saying that, do you think that the low performance in 12th grade is reflected in the nature of our national politics and national media?
I think that's the scary thing that's associated with national politics. I think when you bear down, when you really kind of open up education's country and you look at the educators, you look who's doing the education. I think that's a very impressive group. Like, I think that, you know, probably most underpaid and most underappreciated and most valuable is the teams of do education. Like from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. It's really it's a life of it's a love of the game. It's a passion for education, and I'm more impressed with that profession than almost anything else in the U.S. Now, that said, I don't think that as parents, idea of how important this is. I know that growing up, for me, my especially my dad was definitely what you would consider an intellectual. I mean, he was a college, he was a Yale Law School professor. He read, a book a night, that kind of guy, and incredibly smart, a great writer. And to him, the idea that you could spend 2 minutes in front of a television or something like that it just blew him away. He didn't get any of it. And I think that was a message that, I mean, we definitely don't give that message to our kids today. I didn't. And I don't think that many parents do. And the level of importance and how important college is, both from a networking side, from a learning side, and how we should be so much more appreciative of it than we really are. So yeah, I think to your second question, I think education in most places around the world is on the rise, and in the US, it's on the decline.
Do you believe artificial intelligence poses a liability in the sense that it can serve as an accelerant to diminished brain activity?
So that brings up a really interesting question, because I think they're two different things. Diminished brain activity, and because you've heard me talk about this a million times, I believe that the relationship or the correlation between success and wealth creation and brain processing speed, which comes through, activity, it's a law of large numbers, is the most critical thing that one is. It's one of the most critical things that leads to success, and however you want to define success. Brain processing speed is the mechanism for creating an outlier in life and whatever. And so I am deeply concerned that there are not enough opportunities for young people and even older people to learn and to train their brains to process things faster. One of the reasons I love trading, Dylan, is because trading is one of the few mechanisms that will increase how fast you process things, how fast your brain works. And we've talked about that like hundreds, if not probably thousands.
But do you think artificial intelligence reduces average brain processing speed?
So that's the really interesting thing. Personally, I don't. Personally, I think it helps to increase it, because I don't waste a lot of time on things that I don't waste a lot of time now looking up things that I would have to research, that would take a lot of time. I can get from point A to point B faster, and therefore I can accomplish more stuff. So if used correctly or used in a positive way, artificial intelligence can be very powerful.
Okay.
I think one of the issues that I think you're going for, that I think we have as a society, is that I think kids use it a little differently. And I think that it is a mechanism, and I would do the same thing if I was in high school or college, unless I was kind of trained differently. But I think that using AI as a crutch, using AI to help you get done with stuff. Really,
I mean, can I just tell one another anecdote? Not
yeah,
to interrupt
sure.
you, but I have two college-age nephews, one 20 and the other 21, who I have a very close sort of uncle relationship with. So I get probably more information than their fathers do and whatever, because an uncle is never going to yell at you. So I'll say this: one was a freshman at a university in Colorado. I won't name because we don't want to disparage any individual institution. But it was not UC Boulder, for those playing along at home, just in case you're trying to jump to that conclusion. And he was a freshman. The first year GPT came out, whatever that was, that 2 years ago, 3 years ago, like the version 1.0 kind of a thing. He explained to me that the minute GPT came out, everybody in the dormitory stopped writing their papers. Immediately, whatever. Tell me the history of the Civil War. What's the contrast in the relationship between the European settlers and the Native Americans? Whatever, any assignment, right? Sure. They basically said the entire dormitory stopped doing research and writing papers immediately. The second one is at MIT. He's a smarty pants. He started as like a physics major or something. He's a little older, so I think he was pre-GPT his first year. He did a sort of standard like MIT kind of computer science, physics, math.
Sure.
And then AI came out, and he and every other student at MIT apparently all switched their major to some version of artificial intelligence, whatever that even means, on the belief that graduating from MIT with a degree in artificial intelligence basically guarantees you some kind of a job doing something, because of the combination of the MIT name with AI. It's like a layup for a job.
Okay.
So I see it through two lenses. One, that it narrows the scope of education for, let's say, the most elite or the most ambitious. MIT being a filter for that type of a character. Now they all want to be AI majors. No one's doing rocket science. No one's doing teleportation. No one's doing other physics or chemistry or whatever. Everybody's an AI major. And then on the other hand, in the more traditional sort of middle of the road university culture, all the dorms are using. I guess it's my way of saying I do think that it reduces. I would like to think that it takes away menial tasks to allow the brain to be used for more complex processing. That's just like I want a creative renaissance from all this, and more events and more movie making and more interesting car making and more interesting architecture. All the physical sciences and physical realities, I think, have the potential to be much better, right? Anyway, I'm interested how you sort of reconcile, because obviously none of us know, but how do you resolve the issue of AI in favor of, or to decline the obvious conjecture that it reduces brain processing speed?
First of all, I didn't know they had a teleportation degree at MIT, but
they don't. I've been advocating. I told Arthur, I said, listen, if you're going to waste America's money going to MIT, at least do something useful for your uncle.
Okay, got it.
But he said he's like, it's impossible, blah, blah, blah. Okay. I'm like, look, they already do it with the electrons.
When I was going to, I don't remember if it was the end of high school or just started college, they came out with like Cliff Notes, whenever, or at least we figured it out at some point.
Yeah.
And so we didn't have to read any more books.
Because you could get the Cliff Notes for Catcher in the Rye.
Exactly. Unfortunately, I'd already read Catcher in the Rye, so I had to go to the books I hadn't read. But I think it's fairly, that makes sense to me that, outside of MIT, that in a dorm room, you use ChatGPT to help with your papers. I mean, I get that.
I help to write the papers.
Yeah, right. It doesn't surprise me. I mean, listen, if I get one more ChatGPT email, I'm gonna throw up. You
Well, I
know,
mean, there was not to hijack this thing, but there was a great thing that Vecchio put up yesterday on Overtime, where he was debating. I think it was an Atlantic article or something, where basically it was saying that all of the resumes and all the job applications in America are all being submitted. They're all being drafted by AI and submitted, and HR is using AI to review. And HR is using AI to review them. So you have robots submitting and robots reviewing,
yeah,
and nothing is happening because no one trusts any of it.
100%. I'm actually, working on some projects in that regard, and it's 100%. It's all AI, and it's all in the bottom line is that it all offsets each other, and the results are incredibly mediocre. But
Incredibly mediocre.
It brings up a really interesting topic it brings us down a path that you went down a couple weeks ago when you talked about, what's going to happen, like what is the impact of AI going to be on education? And I think the crazy answer to this is you were right a couple of weeks ago when you talked about how this is going to drive a whole resurgence, almost a renaissance of arts and creativity. And the people that are going to become the most valuable are the ones that can actually create something on their own. That can do
Physical thing, whether you're making a building, whether you're designing a bicycle, whether you're making an like filmmaking, fashion and design, furniture, anything that a robot can't make. And physical events, live events, I think are going to be incredibly popular in the next wave of this culture.
I could not agree with you more. And I think that you're already starting to see that.
Agreed.
People have the demand for, like the live events that we do, the demand for everything that we're doing, that we're creating is just, it's
at an all-time high, and it's only going to be more.
100%. It's only going to be more because people can see through, it's not that easy at first, but pretty quickly thereafter, you can see through it. I mean, if you've ever listened to an AI DJ or an AI talk, and you can figure it out, or you've read an AI resume, it's not that hard to get through, to figure out really quickly what's going on here. So I mean.
So anyway, so let's let's just to return to the original topic, which is we are seeing, forget AI for a second, a decline in the average mathematical and math and reading of the average American student. And that is reflected in anecdotes, it's reflected in test scores, it's reflected in averages, it's reflected in comparisons of American students and American students' test scores to other countries, Mexico, China, blah, blah, blah. What do we do about it? Not to jump to the conclusion too soon in the podcast, but I think we're kind of there.
So my answer is going to be a little bit different than I think the way most people would think. The obvious first response that you're going to hear from 98% of people is going to be create a regulatory structure and create an implied regulatory structure around AI to protect kind of the integrity of whatever the field is, whatever the sector is. And I think that's the easy answer, and that's what everybody talks about as a common answer. I think it's the wrong answer because I don't think that you can never box in technology. That's what you saw, the attempt with crypto. That's what you've seen with everything else over the years. It is absolutely impossible to box in technology through regulations or whatever else. So I say the opposite. I say that universities and whether it's high schools, universities, whatever it is, and however you want to define AI, that you embrace it. And what you do is you have to, it's very expensive to change your curriculum, which is why everybody talks about regulatory changes. It's easier to add regulations than it is to change an existing curriculum. What I think they need to do is actually change the curriculum. And what you do is you make AI, you understand what AI is capable of doing. And so that you build a curriculum around that where AI supports the curriculum.
I couldn't agree. So I'm just what I reason I'm just thinking about like the trading floor transition that we both lived through in different ways. You more directly than I did, but having been the floor reporter during the transition, I was a firsthand witness. You were a direct participant. And then obviously the cliche is the horse and buggy and everything in between. I feel like, I mean, this is, an all hands on deck moment in educate especially for the 15 to 25 year olds, and then really everybody else, which is the entire educational apparatus was historically based on, not just memorization, but some combination of memorization plus some version of problem solving, right? Here's a math problem, resolve it, or here's a concept, discuss it, or here's a historically significant event, understand why it's relevant, or all the sort of traditional educational techniques. I'll say this as I believe, but I think I'm making a statement of fact. In the new world, knowing things actually has a much lower value. And it's being able to find things out that has the highest value now. So having a body of knowledge is less and less valuable. Other than only let me put it this way, that's going to come out the wrong way. Having a body of knowledge is as valuable insofar as it helps you to ask the right questions to solve a problem. So it's not so much more, here's my situation, doctor, what do I do? It's here's my situation, doctor, what questions do I need to ask to find out how to solve this problem? And all of a sudden the premium is on understanding how to navigate and manage the unlimited pool of information that is available to everyone, and sift through it in a way with enough targeting of asking questions that you can actually get to the answer. And I think that the entire educational infrastructure is really still based on the old paradigm, which is here's how we impart a body of knowledge. This is the literary canon. This is the mathematical canon. This is the historical canon. And right now, and then that comes out and they go to GPT and say, what's the historical canon? What's the literary canon? What's the mathematical canon? As opposed to saying, here's a complex, I want you to build a car, figure out how to do it. I want you to figure out how to trade options. Go do it. I want you to figure out how to make a furniture making company. Like something, I believe that multivariable team-based problem solving using the unlimited resources is a vastly more powerful and useful form of education. I witnessed this very much at NBC, where the transition from old school cable news to sort of the new paradigm of streaming media, blah, blah, blah. And it was clear sitting in the NBC sort of senior executive production meetings and board meetings and whatever, that they were never, ever, ever going to embrace streaming and digital. They were making way too much money because of the cable monopoly and because of the legacy system. And there's no way where they were going to cannibalize that by going to a much lower margin streaming business, and thus tastytrade or tastylive and 1,000 other sort of streaming networks have emerged as the dominant media ecosystem. Unfortunately, the educational apparatus has that same resistance, that there is no incentive to transition to a new educational paradigm, which is come here and we will challenge you. We will allow you to use, I'll let you use all of the devices at your disposal. AI is not cheating. Google search is not cheating. YouTube is not cheating. Nothing is cheating. Because I'm not going to ask you a question that I want you to give me an answer to and regurgitate an answer to. I'm going to give you a problem that I need you to solve, and you can use all the tools available to you to solve it. And then a curriculum that basically is a series of 100 progressively complex problems that lasts over 3 or 4 years. I just don't, my concern, Tom, is that we're not going to do it. I think that there's an easy way. There's 50 experiments that 50 smart people could come up with on how to improve the educational system to do this. that embeds math, and I'll come up with an experiment. You have an experiment. There's 1,000 people in America smarter than both of us on the topic who are better that can do better experiments than we would ever come up with. The issue is always the intransigence of the incumbent, whether it's in the banking system, whether it's in the educational system, whether it's in the media. But the country, I think, has much more risk when it's the educational system because, the children are our future, to use a cliche.
That's well said. I don't think we're ever going to discount the value of intelligence, because I don't think that can be replaced with AI. But I think you said it. I think I like the way that you talked about it, because knowledge, as far as just knowing stuff, isn't nearly going to be as valuable as it might have once been. But what will be valuable is, like you said, creating certain challenges and also having the know-how to get stuff done. And I think that's, there's a big difference between knowing something and knowing how to get something done.
Group-based problem solving is actually what life is.
Yeah.
Whether it's you and Scott are like, we want to do a brokerage, and that's like a really complex problem, and that's sort of like the highest level, or whatever. We went through at every level. You just want to build a sandcastle. That also is a problem to solve. You're gonna need some sand in a bucket and whatever.
We went through. You did bootstrapping for a while. We did it for almost 7 years, and one of the things that I learned doing all the bootstrapping segments over the years was that there were so many great ideas and so many incredibly smart people that on the surface, if you just kind of looked at the resume and you read the idea and you read the resume of the person and the company objective, you'd be like, wow, this is amazing. I love what you guys have put together. But yet 90% of those companies failed.
Of course.
And you start to think, how's that? If I love the idea and I love the people, how did 90% fail? And that's for the reason we just talked about. Instead of knowledge is kind of available now. Ideas, good ideas and smart people, there are plenty of them. But being able to apply them those skills in a practical fashion that can actually build, free cash flow or revenue or whatever you want to call it, that's really hard. And there's a big difference between having the knowledge and having the know-how, to generate, profitability or profits or something. So, and I think the same thing applies to AI. There is going to be this massive amount of trained know-how. Anybody can access unlimited. Exactly. Which will speed up the process of learning certain things and access information. But the people that learn how to actually apply that or how to complement it to whatever the business is, that's where all the money is. That's where the future is.
There's an Italian saying, which I'll say in the English translation, which captures exactly what you're describing, which is execution eats strategy for breakfast.
Yeah. I didn't know that was Italian.
Yeah. Maybe it's not. The Italians use it. I don't know who coined it originally.
I thought I had a professor that once said that.
What's that?
I think I had a professor that once said that in upstate New York. But yeah.
And execution is more the interesting thing, as the supply of smart people is almost as unlimited as anything else. There's a lot of smart people, and we all meet, older people, young people, men, women, immigrants, native people, whatever. A lot of smart people, like super smart. Basically, the vast majority of the entire Tasty nation, every person I've ever met at a Tasty is smart. And now you have basically every body of knowledge available. And so it really brings home the point that execution is the final. I mean, that's where it sort of comes down to this is where you get into the sort of
But
doomsday.
Dylan, that's not. This is not something new. Just so we're clear,
Yeah,
the
of
whole
course.
concept of execution based strategy is
It
not
goes
something.
back to the wheel.
That's right. That's right. In the world of trading, we used to have this. Uh, I'll never forget. We hired a kid once. He was um, really brilliant. I mean, like a super smart graduate degree from Carnegie Mellon, had his MBA, crazy smart kid. He studied options for at least a year, maybe 15 months. He could tell you second derivative Greeks. I mean, he would go down. He could basically explain it. He could have taught a graduate level course in options. He was so
In
ready.
terms of just body of knowledge, world class.
Unbelievable. And he was all he ever wanted to do was trade on the floor. That was the whole thing. That's why he came to Chicago. He didn't want to be a teacher. He wanted to trade on the floor. So after
With the party
15
boys,
months,
he wanted to be out there with the Batistas.
yep, he wanted to stand next to Tony and everybody else.
Yeah.
And after a year and a half, I don't remember how long it was, Scott and I finally we gave him the money and put him on a seat. And we sent him down to the floor. And I forgot exactly what crowd that he picked. It wasn't an index, it was an equity crowd. And he went in there, and within 2 weeks, they almost destroyed the kid. Like he literally he couldn't function 2 weeks later.
And could you have any insight as to what the distinction, why that? Was there a discernible insight?
Execution, he had no idea how violent execution was in certain environments.
Violent being the speed at which it happens, or the physical elbows to the face from the former pro football players in the pit?
It's kind of a combination of both. So we sent in the largest human we had, who was a monster, like a literal
as his body man.
As his body man. This guy bench pressed, 600 pounds. He was a steroid freak. He was
Morris has legends of these gentlemen.
He was somebody that nobody messed with. Like literally nobody messed with him, because he once broke 3 guys' ribs in the bond pit. He had knocked a few people out. Nobody messed with him. He was the strongest person we had on our team. We sent him in there as protection for this kid because we wanted this kid to make it. And still, he had no chance. After 1 month being on the floor, he quit and said, "This is not for me. I can't handle it." And he was really messed up. And so it gets to your point, because I mean, that's a story that always stuck out in my head because, even with the muscle behind him, we couldn't pull it off. So,
but what do we? I just want to come back to the most important thing, because what do we do about the math and read? We have a math and reading skills crisis in the United States of America.
That has nothing to do. That has nothing to do with. I don't believe that is a byproduct or a derivative of AI.
Fair enough. So discount AI.
We had
America still has the stupidest world leader on earth.
We've had a math and English problem for decades. It just continues to get worse.
Exactly. And we've had bad presidents for decades. It just continues to get worse.
There's never been an emphasis on education because it's a little bit of a divisive area and it doesn't win votes. It's not something that, that people, they're not going to write a check because you have a certain policy on education. They're not going to get behind a platform that is education first. I mean, local governments, yes, but not
on a national level. It's politically immaterial.
Yeah, it is. And people just don't. I mean, on a national level, you can't generate support. You can't generate dollars. I mean, you've run for the House. How much money could you raise talking about education?
Zero.
Yeah, there you go.
0.0.
Yeah, there you go. And
I mean, that's why they run on gay marriage and abortion, and the whole woke thing is only based on money raising. Like it's not that people really care about transgender this or
of course,
or abortion that.
Everything is a lightning
It's
rod.
because that lights things up. And so it's a way to raise money. And the entire political system is about raising money. And so you pick the issue to get the most money in.
Lightning rods, electric fences. That's what, that's what gets people excited. They want to touch it. They want to see what's going on. You cannot sell, hey, we're going to bump up the math scores. It just doesn't sell. I mean, I would argue in a very perverse way, I would argue that that some politicians like it that way because that's how they build their base.
I totally agree. I mean, it's sort of like, you're not the only one that thinks that either, which is that the lower the educational level, it is in the self-interest of our political leaders to have a voter base that is poorly educated, smoking marijuana, watching pornography, and gambling online.
I mean, even Trump famously said once, "I love the poorly educated."
Yeah.
that was a campaign slogan he used. I mean, let's be real here. Okay, that was a freaking campaign slogan.
I think we really need to sort of. I mean, listen. I won't bother getting into it. It's just. I think that we really need. I don't think the government's going to help. I think that we have to help as individuals. I think that companies need to help. I think that institutions need to help. I think, I think that this is a direct intervention at the closest point of contact to the young people, because I just don't see how the government's going to be able to do anything about this.
I think that I think we have to make more funds available to local, to the states for education, and then spread the wealth. And we have to make a commitment to it, and we have to trust our local educators, because that's kind of one of the core strengths in this country. And we just need to, we need to fund them so that they can change curriculum to meet the changing demands of AI and the changing influence that AI has. And I think the way you do that is you spread some of the wealth. Mm-hmm. Let's buy a few less tanks, and let's buy a few less, warships, and let's commit some money to education across the country. And let's let local, state, and local governments commit it to departments of education and let them spend the money. Let's not cut back. Let's add money to that. I think it's important.
Would you add it with a mandate that it can't be used for this legacy? I mean, I think, because the other thing is the educational curriculum now is seen as a political document,
which is sad. And I don't know how you get around that, because there's certain states which have made some horrible, decisions with respect to education, specifically like Oklahoma and places like that, which have, they've basically turned it into a religious / political football, which it shouldn't be.
But it actually, like, now it's like, if you want to make the change to the curriculum, it's not like, oh, well, we need to do more, whatever. Like, it's like, oh, this curriculum is a document of political indoctrination from the left or the right. It's no longer a document of actual education, or not perceived to be at that.
Yeah, everybody politicizes education. I mean, that's the whole critical race theory thing. Like, it's ridiculous. We're not changing history here. Let's commit the dollars. Let's trust the educators. We have an incredible system throughout this country of people that actually give a damn. I mean, sometimes it drives me crazy when we put certain types of, people that only care about themselves, or that, the people that we look up to, sometimes it's the worst. And we need to look up to the people that really, that commit their lives to educating our kids.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, and I also agree with your sort of original statement, which is that as a group, most of the teachers that I meet from both public and private schools are really hardworking, above average intelligence, and really, really care about children and care about education.
They take bullets for kids.
Literally.
Okay, literally. let's pay them some respect by giving them some money, so they're not, that's all.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. Although I'm a little bit frustrated with this discussion because I feel like we have done a fine job discussing a very complex and somewhat frustrating problem, but I give us a total failure in offering any meaningful solutions other than maybe advocating for some more resource. I guess advocating for more resources and more attention for a transition in education. But that's a fairly.
If you're not subscribed, subscribe right here. And if you want to meet me and the team in person at our next live event, hit the link at the top of the description.